Shalom Baruch. I'd like to continue now with Hashem in our quest of going through the Teshuva movement, which was started through the 6 Day War and the Yom Kippur War. We started this already, as Hashem will continue now. So now I would like to read an article which was written by a writer in the newspaper Haaretz. It was Amnon Danker, one of the Haaretz's writers. He published it. It was Erev Yom Kippur, 1981. It was reprinted during the Seis Teshuva in Hamadia. I saw it brought down by Riel Schwarzenegger, and it's a fascinating article. The article is about how he observed. He was a Freier Yid, and he stayed Frei till the end of his life. He observed he describes how he observed the Teshuva movement from his perspective, from the perspective of someone that's not from how it was seen. Yeah. The title of the article was called Alone. This is how it goes. It's easier for me to ignore the emotions. Obviously, I translated it to English. It's easier for me to ignore the emotions of secular people than those of Baal Tshuva, who find their way into the world of Torah. They're all swept up by the Spirit, all carried away by the light, and I'm left alone. Suddenly, I look around and see what's going on here. I'm left alone. This is how he's expressing himself, how he felt all alone. When this happens, it happens slowly. At first, you don't feel it at all. One person goes, then another. You look for an excuse that makes it make sense. And the guys say, he went, and shrug their shoulders. You can say that one person goes, becomes Baal Tshuva, another person becomes Baal Tshuva. You find excuses. They get lost, you don't know where they are. What happened to them? What's going on over here? And you shrug your shoulders and go on. You don't really reflect on it, he writes, until one day you pause, do some thinking, and say to yourself, wait a minute, this isn't just a passing trend. This is starting to look like an epidemic. You know what it reminds me of? He goes on to say that it reminds him of the period of after the Kippur War, that Nebuch, people didn't return and they left, and slowly but surely they found out, they saw this person was missing, this person was missing, and they found out that it was Nifter. So it was a slow process, and he says the same thing with business. He goes on about the Kippur War, how the process of people finding out who was Nifter, or people that went into business and weren't Matzliach after the 6th War, after the Kippur War. It was a slow procedure. Afterwards, you realize a lot of things were messed up. Oh, but I'm going to skip over here, but over the years, each one took it their own direction. Walk around, you'll see. Here, even one of our group, sorry, then this whole story of returning to religion started. It's hard for me to pinpoint exactly how or when it began. We'd hear about some guys who disappeared and suddenly started showing up in town with black kippahs on their heads and with a strange look in their eyes, that high, blissful kind of look. He came back with their kippahs on their head and they looked like high. Wow, they were excited. They'd walk around like that for a week or two. These are people who they know. They disappear. They come back a week or two, all excited with a kippah on the head, and disappear completely. And then they disappeared completely. You wouldn't see them anymore. These were guys from the outer circle, so we didn't pay much attention. We thought just another passing craze. But slowly it started getting closer to us. What do you mean? You go to a friend to make plans for Shabbos. He starts dodging. He's uncomfortable. He's busy until you finally drag it out of him. For the past 3 months, he's been going to Rehovot for the Shabbos. to some rabbi who gives lectures about Judaism. So that's why that guy didn't want to meet him on Shabbos. What's going on? You ask him. Have you gone crazy? But nothing helps. A month later, he's walking around with a black kippah, and he's basically not here anymore. He travels. He travels to Jerusalem every couple of days, acts weird, slips through your fingers, and you just stand there and watch as he changes day by day. It's amazing. One day a kippah, a week later only eats kosher. Another week shows up with tzitzits, kisses, and mezuzahs. You sit down with him for coffee. He lifts the cup, and before he drinks, he says a blessing. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, by whose word all things came to be. You sit, look at him, listen to him talk, and you ask yourself, is this really him? And then he fades away. Then he's gone, and you hear that he's an Or Sameach. Or Sameach, that's their yeshiva. That's where they send them after the initial softening for deep plowing. First you get close to them, then they soften, and once you go to Or Sameach, then starts deep plowing. And that and what's nice there is they don't force you into anything. Once you're inside, it doesn't look like as dark as we always thought. We used to think those religious guys were all in the dark, but you want to wear a t-shirt and jeans? Go ahead. This is an Arasabach. We want to go downtown and take a kippah? No problem. Actually seems kind of encouraging. There are even guys walking around with pens and Walkmans. The only difference is they are not listening to Pink Floyd there, they're listening to lectures of Rabbi Shapiro. And then you feel yourself there free and happy. You can do whatever you want, you can listen to whatever you want, you can wear jeans, you can take a couple, and when you go downtown, and you don't even notice how this whole thing is closing in on you from all directions. You get drawn deeper and deeper, and everything seems profound. The learning, for example, doesn't hit you all at once. They start with light things, the weekly Torah portion, a bit of Rashi, Mesilas Yesharim, and it's all arranged so that your appetite grows as you eat. And of course, you can't help but be impressed by the passion. If you're used to mock religious Jews swaying in front of their books, now you're getting into it and you're starting swaying. You start swaying yourself, and you find that it's actually very pleasant. It helps with concentration and draws you into genuine excitement about the material. You go into Sameach study hall and you see the guys, they're swaying like madmen, their hands flying in all directions, and they're explaining verses and Talmudic arguments, practically shouting. And when they crack a tough piece, their faces light up with real joy. And that's exactly one of the things that pulls you in. That joy. It's a spiritual joy, not joy from a new car or from Maccabi Tel Aviv winning the Euro Cup. When was the last time you felt that kind of excitement, that kind of joy? Sometimes when I read newspapers talking about political or ethnic earthquakes, I think to myself, they don't even notice the real earthquake. My friends, they're disappearing one by one, as if the earth swallowed them up. And the world just keeps going like nothing happened. Who will be left behind? The moment I really got shaken when I started to grasp how big this thing is was when I went to Rami's wedding at Ar Sameach. I came there and I was shocked. Since high school, I didn't see so many of my friends in one place, and now they're all wearing black kippahs. Some have beards and their uniforms, white shirts with long sleeves and dark trilling pants. I look closely, and through their strange clothes and beards, I recognize faces I hadn't seen in so long. Guys I used to hang out with at the White Gallery, at the cabin, or at Shmuel's place. Guys who vanished off the map, and suddenly, there, there they are, happy dancing. I almost got dizzy. He's explaining that how he came to this chasna, Ar Sameach, from a friend of his that went to Ar Sameach, and it was not seems to be it was by Ar Sameach. Ar Sameach made it, and all the friends came, Ar Sameach friends, and he had a shock of his life because all of a sudden he saw so many of his friends that he from the past that he just developed a map, and here they are, they're all from Jews. They were doing the same dances we used to do as a joke in folk dance class, wearing fake Hasidic costumes. Only now they're dancing for real. That all these people were doing, us American guys were doing all these dances that when they were fried, they used to fake it, but now they're doing it for real. I go up to them and ask, "What's going on?" And they smile at me and say, "Traitor of Israel." They're calling him. So when are you coming over to our side? I don't know if actually they told him those words, but that was his feeling that that's what's going on. He's looking at them like they're looking at him as a traitor. So when he coming over to our side, it's crazy. I tell you, completely crazy. I run into a close friend from the neighborhood, standing next to me in a little black hat and a suit, and I say, "Well, it's lively here around his wedding." And what does he say? He nods his small beard and says, why? A chashav, a chassan, a great chassan, a great Torah scholar. This after we used to go wild together. Now he's all about a great Torah scholar, great Torah scholar. This guy who used to be his friend used to have fun and a blast. Now what's he being looked at up? I saw it's a great Torah scholar. What really freaked me out was when he took my hand, brought me over to two rabbis standing there, and introduced me. Here, this one calls himself a traitor of Israel, a big sinner. He needs fixing. Again, he's probably expressing the way he felt when he introduced him to those rebbeim, like telling the rebbeim, let's work on this guy. And they look at me with gentle smiles and say, come, take a look around, learn a bit, see what's all about. We'll welcome you with love. And their eyes warm, glowing, confusing. There's something about those robbers, I'm telling you. I said to them, yeah, maybe I'll come, maybe in a year. Right now, I've got other plans. And I ran away. At least I think I ran away. All the way back to Tel Aviv, I kept thinking about it. And the scariest part, I started to wonder, why not? Why not give it a try? On one hand, I was scared because this isn't some yoga meditation and Scientology thing. You don't do this for 6 months and walk away. This is for years, maybe for life. But on the other hand, I see my former friends, I have to say former, dancing in pools of light, truly happy. And happy isn't a small word. So why not give it a try? Happiness isn't a small thing. And when I get home, I find Nava. He's explaining that, he comes, he's debating in himself. Maybe I go, maybe not go. If I go, I'll be attached for life. I might come attached to life. But on the other hand, it's happiness. So when he comes home, I find Nava waiting for me at the entrance. Sad. Nava is the girlfriend of Nathan, a good friend of mine. One of the last ones still around. He said this Nathan was one of the last friends that are still around that are not from. I bring her inside. So this friend Nathan of his girlfriend was waiting for him, and she's all sad. So he says, the writer, I bring her inside, give her something to drink, and she starts crying. When she calms down, she tells me that Nathan had already been right under our noses at all the right places. At the Rabbi Rechovet, at Or Samech, and now he's wearing a black kippah, kissing mezuzahs, and trying to teach her the weekly Torah portion. And she says she's crying that this friend, his boyfriend, started coming from, and he's trying to catch her in also. I call his parents, Nathan's parents. The writer's writing, I call the guy who started to come from. I call his parents. His mother answers, her voice like it's coming from the grave. What's going to be with him? He won't taste anything in the house, not kosher. Nathan, the friend over here, doesn't want to even eat from his parents' house. We're losing him. You can't reason with him. You can't talk to him. Soon he'll be out there throwing stones on the remote highway. What will the neighbors say? What could I say to her? So the writer's right. What could I say to Nathan's friend? Now Nathan has gone too, and I'm left alone, truly alone. I remember the poem Babi Alak who learned in high school. Everyone was carried by the wind, everyone swept up by the light, and I remained alone. This is talking about Bialik, about the Haskalah. Everyone was carried away by the wind, everyone swept up by the light, and I remained alone. Back then, it meant the opposite, about all those who drifted. He's speaking about the way people in yeshiva felt. Nebuch Bialik was one of the was learned to be Lashon, if not mistaken, and a lot of people were swept away because they felt alone. They see the winds of Haskalah was strong, and people were just drawn in because they felt alone. Back then, it meant the opposite, about all those who drifted from the yeshiva during the Enlightenment, and now the wheel has turned. No more Enlightenment. No more Enlightenment. No more university. No business, no Zionism. No army. All these things were the things that drew up people to become free. No more Enlightenment. No more university. No more business. No Zionism. No army. None of it seems to be enough anymore. They're returning to the roots. Look, everything I told you about the war, about mythicism, about everything personal, everyone's personal issues, maybe all of it is true, but sometimes I feel like it's something deeper than all that. I mean, maybe it's the fault of the war, the Kippur War, people go mysticism, people have personal issues, they're not being matzliach in the business. These are all good reasons why to explain why people are going off the derech and becoming from. That was the problem of what the derech then. They were coming from, but sometimes he's writing, I feel like there's something deeper than all that. Maybe it's in our genes. We're all Jews, aren't we? Maybe the whole story of the Enlightenment and Zionism was just a transitional phase to build the state. These words are amazing, by the way, from a Freya person who's actually repeating things which Gadol Yisrael said. That with a little bit, obviously with a little bit different, but that's an idea. He's writing that you know why the whole Enlightenment and Zionism came along? Was just a transitional phase to build a state. And now after that passed, there's no point of Zionism anymore. After those generations have finished their historic role, we're returning to what we really are, to what we're supposed to be. And when I tell you this, believe me, I am scared because I know I'm teetering. I'm like an apple on a tree. Another week, maybe two, maybe a month, maybe a year, and I'll fall too. He's scared that he's going to come from also. One of those friends will invite me to spend the Shabbos at Ar Sameach, and I'll give in a moment of weakness. And whoosh, I'll already be on the launch pad with no way back. Someone, something right now, urgently needs to scream back onto the tree, but who and what? That is the end of quotes of this writer. So this thing is very very powerful, and it just brings out perspective of what was really going on. We take it for granted everything what's happening, what happened, and this just puts a beautiful light onto the Teshuva movement. I'll just continue a little bit more over here. You know, so this actually writer was writing after the Kippur War, actually quite a while after, like 9 years after the Kippur, 8 years after the Kippur War, 1981. The war was 1973. So that was the outcome of the Tshuva movement of the Yom Kippur War. Like we said, it started with the 6 Day War. Now, the 6 Day War, it's famous what everyone says. I'm just going to quote it from Yaakov Kamenetsky. It's brought down the Yated. Yisrael Spiegel brings down that after the Yom Kippur War, he went to Yaakov Kamenetsky. He said, Yom Kippur War actually started with a lot of failures, and that's what gave everyone a shock. So even though they had a lot of wisdom afterwards, and they won the war, but still, it shook everyone to the core of all the failures they made during the Yom Kippur War. So he says that, but the 6 Day War had tremendous, they got back Yerushalayim, it tripled its land. The land became 3 times its size, put it that way. And so the 6 Day War was a lot more matzliach than the Yom Kippur War. So Yaakov Kamenetsky says the truth is, on Torah's perspective, Yom Kippur War was a lot more matzliach because Yom Kippur War brought the Klal Yisrael back. That's what started the whole Tshuva movement. That's what woke everyone, shook everyone to the core, and everyone started soul searching for the Judaism. So Mashenkin, after the 6th War, even though everyone got shocked and it was tremendous, we spoke about it in the past, but still, after a while, they started falling back and they forgot about it and finished. Again, let's not forget, it wasn't so much time from 1967 to 1973, 6 years. So the 6 Day War lasted a little bit, and they got back used to it, but it was still in they were still living the 6th Day War. They were still under impression of the 6th Day War. So that's why actually this Yom Kippur War was such a shock, because they were brought up so high through the 6th Day War and still under that impression with their heads up. They lost tremendously. In the beginning of the war, they had tremendous shock, and it was terrible. And that's what shook everyone to the core, to make them like, what am I doing here? What's going on? So, but Lamaisa was the Yom Kippur War, which sealed the Tshuva movement and brought Klal Yisrael back. Um, so that's the Kamenetsky says this. That's from the Torah's point of perspective of view. The Yom Kippur was a lot more matzliach. But I would like to quote a beautiful piece from Yisrael Eichler, written in Shkofas HaNetzach, L'Shalos Hazman. That's where I found it in. And it's a piece, it's a beautiful piece, and adds a lot more light to this, to what happened. And actually, it's what he writes is in the Gaitas today and on different places. But it puts a beautiful thing. He says like this. It's, he says, after the 6th War, this was a Matthias. There wasn't a serious. People were Nis'ir. People wanted to do tshuva. It was electrifying. The Gans Klaus woke up to who they were. And if there wasn't such a tshuva movement, it's our fault. You know why it's our fault? It's our fault because we didn't have the tools to keep them. We didn't have the tools to deal with them. There were so many Baal Tshuvas, but there was no one feeding them. There were so many hungry people. There was nothing to eat. There was no yeshivas. There was no people that are oisek and chinuch for Baal Tshuvas. There was no outreach. There was no Shabbatons. There's nothing going on. So after there was no one to help out, they just got used to the situation and everything petered out. But he said by the time it came the Yom Kippur War, then Klal Yisrael woke up and got shocked again. At this period of time, there was a nice amount of people who are ready to help out with the Baal Tshuva. He says that by that time, which again, it started through 6th War, people started looking into helping out Baal Tshuva. So without experience, so it took time to build up to already yeshivas that were already catching them. They opened up yeshivas, and Elam Akaris was a yeshiva that opened. There was an organization that opened up to for Baal Tshuvas before the Yom Kippur War, and ended up turning into Arachim, and then Osameach opened, and then Ishtar opened. So all these, there were yeshivas that it all started between the 6th War and Yom Kippur War. That's when there was a tremendous thirst, so people started looking into it, started helping them out. And that's why Elam Akaris opened up, because Shach saw that there's a tremendous need for it. But they were not ready. They weren't ready. By the time 6 years later came along, they were ready to take in. And even then, they weren't fully ready. There were a lot of people, they could have had a lot more Baal Tshuvas then, he writes. But there was still, but there was enough at least to take in slowly all the Baal Tshuvas and build them up and start the Tshuva movement. So there's a new perspective that because they were ready after the Yom Kippur War, that's why the Tshuva movement started. So we have to be ready. We have to be ready to, we'll see later what's going on in our generation. If we're just going to ignore it, it's going to be much harder to the process of broadening what's going on in our generation. We have to wake up. When we wake up and we see what's going on, and we apply ourselves. We use our tools. We create the kelim, we create the space for greater growth. So we have to. So that's what happened in between the 60 War and the Kippur Wars. They created the tools for those that wanted to come back after the Kippur War in order to come back. And we should use that for what's going on in our generation. We have to look around, see what's going on, try to create the tools to 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 to, to bring out Kvat Shemayim and strengthen the tshuva movement that's going on in our generation and everything else, not just tshuva movement, other things. For every person in his own area has to know according to what you invest, that's how much you get out.